Hi friends, today I would like to share to you the story of the Shunamite woman which we find in 2 Kings chapter 4. And I find this story very amazing because tragedy strikes the Shunamite woman and her response is very amazing to see how she responds to that situation. And I would really like to speak on that subject because there are times when we go through life that tragedy strikes us, we go through various problems in life. But how do we respond to that situation? And we find this story about the Shunamite woman. In a minute, we'll be reading some scripture. She was a woman who honored the men of God, and we find that Elisha, the prophet, and Gehazi would often visit her, and she used to take care of them, give them food, and she even prepared a room for them to stay over there. And eventually Elisha, he prophesies over Shunammite women because they don't have any children, and he says that they are going to have a child, and the prophecy comes to pass. She has a child, and the child grows up, and the scripture says that child goes to the field, to the farm where his father is, and then he complains about the headache. So the father sends him to his mother, and he comes to his mother and he lies on her knees, and then it says, the scripture says, by afternoon that child dies. Tragedy strikes to the Shunamite woman. Now let's see what is her response in that situation. She takes her child's body and keeps in Elijah's room. And then she comes down. She calls for her husband. And she tells her husband that she is going to Elisha, and she needs a servant to go with her. Now, of course, the husband is worried, he's concerned, wondering why she wants to go to Elisha at this time. And we find in verse 23 of chapter 4, 2 Kings, it says, so he said, why are you going to him today? It is neither the new moon nor the Sabbath. And she said, it is well. It is well. She could have mentioned what has just happened, that their son is dead. She could have mentioned that, but she chose to say that it is well. Then we find that she carries on and she goes on a journey. Elisha sees her from far, that she's coming towards him. So he sends Gehazi with this message. And in verse 26, we find that, this is what it says. Please run now to meet her and say to her, is it well with you? Is it well with your husband? Is it well with the child? And she answered, it is well. It is well. Again, she responds to this question, that is everything well with you? And she says, it is well. Then we find, as we read the story, that Elijah comes to know about her distress and what she has just gone through. So eventually Elisha, he goes to her house, and he prays over the child and brings back that child back to life. And that miracle happens to her. Now in that story that I just told you, and we read a couple of scriptures, the response that Shunamite woman had in her tragedy was, she said, it is well. How many of us we can respond to the tragedies that we face in life, the problems that we face in life? How many of us we can say, it is well, it is well with us? This reminds me of a man or man of God who has written this famous hymn called It is Well with My Soul. and his name is Horatio Spafford. Now, Spafford was a businessman. He had a business. He was a very prominent lawyer in America, and in 1871 there was a big fire in Chicago, and the whole city was burnt into ashes. And Spafford, he lost his business, he lost most of his investment, and it was a big tragedy for him. After 2 years, Spafford, with his wife and 4 little children, decided to visit England, where his friend D.L. Moody was going to preach. So, as they planned to go to England in a ship, some work comes up because of that tragedy, and he has to attend some meetings and sort out some issues over there. So he stays back and he sends his wife and 4 children to England in the ship. But then, second tragedy strikes in Spafford's life. As his wife and 4 children are traveling, the ship that they were traveling in collides with another ship. Over 200 people die, and in that, Spafford's 4 children also die. The only survivor was his wife, Anna. Now, Anna somehow she survived, and she was rescued and taken to England. And from there, Anna, she sends a telegram to say this, that she has alone survived. What must she do now? Spafford decided to take the next ship available, and as he was going in the ship towards England, the captain of the ship pointed out to the spot where his 4 children had died. And the captain of the ship, he wanted to comfort Spafford. But Spafford's response was this: it is well with my soul. And that's where he wrote this hymn. I would like to just read the first para of this hymn. It says, "When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul." What a powerful response to the tragedy Spafford had, where he could say, it is well with my soul. You know why? Because Spafford's trust was in God. He knew that God was in control. Though he had this tragedy in his life, he chose to believe and trust God and have faith in God, and to say to himself, it is well with my soul. Same with the Shunamite woman. She also responded to the tragedy of her life, and she said, it is well with my soul. How would you respond to the problems of your life? Can you say that it is well with your soul? And I find there is one more character in the Bible, King Ahaz. Now, King Ahaz, in his distress, he did not respond the same way. We find that in the scripture, and it says in 2 Chronicles chapter 28 verse 22, it says, "Now in the time of his distress, King Ahaz became increasingly unfaithful to the Lord." How did King Ahaz respond to his distress? The scripture says he became increasingly unfaithful to the Lord. I would like to encourage you. Let us not become unfaithful to God. Over the years I have seen, there were people who walked with the Lord, loved God, but when tragedy struck them, or some issues or some problems happened in their life, And when they saw there were unanswered prayers, they decided to backslide. They decided to stop trusting God. And even many became cold and lukewarm with their walk with the Lord. Let us not respond in that way, but let us be like Paul, who says in 2 Corinthians chapter 12 verse 10, he says, "Therefore I take pleasure in infirmities, in reproaches, in needs, in persecutions, in distresses for Christ's sake. For when I am weak, then I am strong." What a great approach Paul has to every circumstances and situation of his life. He says that he takes pleasure in infirmities, in reproaches, in needs. Are you in need? Are you going through persecution? Are you in distress? He says, "For when I am weak, then I am strong." You know, we need to put our faith and trust in God. Let us not give place to any doubts in our life, but keep trusting God, because God is in control. He loves you, He will take care of you, and He will deliver you from all your trouble. So let us, like Shunamite woman and like Spafford, let us say, "It is well with my soul. It is well." So God bless you.